Baroda had been center for an art movement through the 70s and 80s, which was of course now being called as figurative narrative in the art historical writings. The main person, along with Bhupen Kakkar and Geeta Kapoor, person instrumental for that movement is Professor Gulam Mohammed Sheikh, undoubtedly. Sheikh is somebody who has looked very, very deeply into traditional Indian painting traditions. I mean, ranging between folk tribal to most classical miniature paintings to murals to of all traditions. And he has studied them. Now, it is not just a matter of formal study or training into traditional languages, but it was connected with this aspect of having to come to an appropriate secular language in art. And also, we know that India had been going through very tough times with regard to the challenges posed on the secular fabric of our country. Particularly in the 90s, it culminates. But meanwhile, Sheikh had been concerned about the community relationships, or as he would possibly call as the relationship between faiths, various religious faiths like Hinduism, Islam, Sikhism, etc. The kind of underlying unity between these faiths, you know. He is somebody who had been searching for that, and he had been subjectively engaged in that. Being a Muslim and coming from a kind of a provincial Saurashtra town to Baroda, a bigger town, and looking at the national scene and the international scene at the same time, it had been a major search and in these directions. So in this process he along with Bhupen has edited Vrishchik, a little magazine in the late 60s. He has curated shows in through the 70s. He focused very deeply in his art in the late 70s and early 80s. I think the whole process actually culminated at the time when Place for People show was put up in Bombay and Delhi. Consolidation of a lot of trends that was happening before that, at least for 1.5 decades. And Sheikh's Victorian language comes to a kind of maturity by then. And since then he had been further exploring the possibility of, in the direction of format, one. That's why he comes up to large murals in Bhopal, small size paintings, to computer generated digital prints, to something as ambitious as something like carved, So it's a whole range of, I think it is also his study of Bengal's, particularly Shantiniketan artists, Nandalal Bose and Vinod Bihari Mukherjee, has been very, very pertinent in his development as an artist. He connects very, very strongly in his efforts to the experimental explorations of the Shantiniketan painters, Nandalal Bose and Vinod Bihari Mukherjee, in terms of mural space, in terms of scroll, in terms of screen, in terms of small watercolors on paper, in terms of postcard size. So exploring all these possibilities. I think his relevance in Indian art is immense, because there is always a tendency to limit the significance of tradition in terms of mere technique or in mere stylization or in terms of format or in some technique or something like that. But Gulam Mohammed Sheikh is able to give a contemporary relevance from his own very personal subjective position to the value of the traditional. So as a result, what we see is a perfect continuum between a traditional craft person who is entrenched in a cultural ambience to a modernist painter who functions within the kind of given gallery system and kind of other kind of capitalistic art production circuit. He's kind of able to negotiate between tradition and modernity in a very, very pertinent way. I think it's an exceptional example as far as modern Indian art is concerned.